And you know from my Let's Talk Sodomy video that sodomy in the original sense of Sodom and Gomorrah involved abusive attraction towards people of the same gender that isn't returned. It's abusive because you're allowing your attraction and desire for a person of the same sex or gender to override the other person's acceptance or rejection of your desire. So the Sodomites, in the case of the angels who visited Lot, they didn't care if the angels wanted them to abuse them or not. Ultimately, they didn't care if Lot wanted them to abuse them or not. They tolerated Lot, but once he tried to prevent them from sodomizing the visiting guests, then they were going to sodomize him as well. Even worse, they said, we're going to do worse to you. So sodomy in the original sense, it does lead to the type of things we associate with it today: anal sex, completely abusive, no redeeming value to anal sex. It only destroys both parties and never leads to reproduction, obviously. Yet people keep doing it anyway. They get that option, and then they get the judgment that Jah is going to render to them for abusing their bodies and not paying attention to their own beginning. Right? They're not recognizing what is so obvious. It's a part of their actual person, their physicality. And different people may have certain hormonal imbalances or things that can at times create disruptions in our biochemistry and lead to things that may involve things like sodomy or sin that either we accept or reject and we feel bad about and repent. But to continue to involve yourself with abusive lifestyles and practices, not just sinning because we're all sinful at times and we make mistakes, but to get involved in openly, obviously immoral lives by abusing someone else against their will, especially someone of the same gender, because you could only really damage them in addition to violating their choice. You would have to be damaging them sexually if you're going to perform those kinds of acts on the same gender, because the organs don't line up. Very obvious humanity biology 101. It's like something you learn before even biology, humanity, anatomy, world 101, right? Because we're born with our physicality. We know about it before anybody really has to tell us. Yet these people will absolutely forget all that and misuse their body and other people's body repeatedly. Even in the case of the Sodomites, if the other party isn't willing. See, in today, many places, homosexuality is legal. So when people do it willingly together, they're really not following after the Sodomites. They may be practicing a form of sodomy relative to what ultimately would have been involved in the sodomite behavior. But two homosexuals who willingly sodomize each other, that's up to them. You know, they'll get their own judgment and the consequences of their actions. But that's not willing anal abuse is not really sodomy. It's sodomy today. But the original sodomy is abusive attraction and attempt to abuse someone of the same gender against their will. They don't want it. That's what the Sodomites were doing. But they were also doing these things in other ways that led up to the judgment that Jah gave before we have them actually trying to overrule Lot and the angels in terms of what they wanted. So maybe they were just doing all these things in more open ways without the type of abuse we see them performing with Lot and the angels. But either way, we know that's what really tipped the scales. So today we have to be tolerant of those who are at least not abusing people against their will, because anal sex or sodomy in that sense is legal in many places. And we're not here to get involved in people's lives or try to stop them from doing what they choose to do. As long as they're not hurting someone against their will, they're going to have to answer for those decisions. But if they are, someone's being abused against their will, that's a whole different deal. And we should get involved to help the person who's being abused. So, just like Lot attempted to help the visiting guests when he thought they were going to be abused.